The alien queen recognizes the human during CourtShe, calls him forward, and trusts him with her safety. Yet here he was, standing aboard the Vanguard, his sleek human warship orbiting the vast alien capital like a tiny spark of defiance in a sea of alien grandeur. Through the viewport, the planet below gleamed with colors he could not name. Crimson towers that pierced clouds, rivers of liquid light winding between citadels, and enormous floating spires that defied every law of physics he knew. "Commander Kane," the human ambassador's voice crackled through the intercom, "the Queen herself has requested your presence. Proceed to the docking bay. All protocols are to be followed. This is unprecedented." Kane's jaw tightened. He had faced countless alien species in battle, negotiated truces under fire, and survived ambushes no human should have lived through. But the Zalarian Empire's court was a different kind of battlefield, a place where the sharpest weapons were minds, and betrayal was an art perfected over centuries. He donned his formal uniform, the insignia of the United Earth Fleet shining on his chest. Every crease was in place, every boot polished to a mirror finish. Kane's team of human officers followed silently, their expressions a mix of pride and tension. They all knew the stories. Humans had been observed by the Zalarians in minor skirmishes, noted for unpredictability and stubborn courage, yet never truly respected. This invitation, or summons, felt like stepping onto a chessboard where every piece was waiting to strike. The docking bay was enormous, even by human standards, with walls of iridescent metal that pulsed with energy. As Kane's shuttle touched down, he felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. Zalarian guards, each taller than a human ceiling, lined the entrance. Their limbs were jointed in ways that defied anatomy, and their translucent skin revealed flickers of internal energy coursing like fire. Kane had trained to face alien adversaries, but nothing in simulations had prepared him for the sheer presence of these beings. The human ambassador gave him a curt nod. "Remember, Commander, you are not just representing yourself. Humanity's reputation is on the line. Do not falter." Kane nodded, though the tightness in his chest betrayed his nerves. He stepped forward, his boots echoing on the gleaming floor. At the end of the long corridor, the great chamber opened before him. The court of the Queen was vast, almost incomprehensible in scale. Crystal pillars stretched toward an invisible ceiling, refracting light in 1,000 directions. Alien courtiers floated rather than walked, their limbs extended like intricate sculptures. Whispers filled the air, not spoken aloud but transmitted telepathically, vibrating through Kane's mind in patterns he struggled to interpret. And then she appeared. The Queen. She was taller than any human, her form both delicate and impossible, like a living prism. Her skin shimmered with iridescent hues that shifted with her mood. Her eyes, dozens of them, multifaceted and luminous, scanned the court and finally they landed on Kane. The room seemed to hold its breath. Recognition flashed in her gaze. Kane couldn't explain it, but he felt a weight lift from the air, a silent acknowledgement that he was different. The court, sensing the exchange, murmured among themselves. Zalarians were never so visibly expressive, especially in the presence of a visitor. Kane felt the eyes of hundreds upon him, alien eyes measuring every inch, calculating every possibility. "Step forward," the Queen commanded. Her voice was not spoken, but imprinted directly into Kane's mind, resonating with a power that was almost overwhelming. The other courtiers recoiled slightly, taken aback by the directness. Kane stepped forward, careful, measured, aware that one misstep could be interpreted as defiance, or worse. As he approached, he noticed subtle details. The delicate glow of her energy patterns, the way the light bent around her form, and the faint, rhythmic pulse that seemed to echo like a heartbeat in the vast chamber. Kane realized that every Zalarian moved with intent. There was no casual motion. Every gesture was calculated, and yet here the Queen's recognition of him was instinctive, almost human. "You are Commander Elias Kane," she said directly into his mind. "I have observed your species before in distant conflicts. You are unpredictable, resourceful, alive in ways my advisors do not understand." Kane's mind raced. He had encountered aliens who had underestimated humans. He had fought against species whose technology was centuries ahead, yet none had ever approached him with trust or recognition before he had even proven himself. "Your presence here is unusual," Kane said carefully. He kept his tone respectful, measured. "Why summon me?" The Queen's gaze shifted slightly, scanning the chamber. My court is divided. There are those who would see me removed from power. I have no ally among my own kind I can trust completely, except you." A murmur ran through the courtiers. Humans were never entrusted with such roles. To place one so close to the queen was unheard of. Cain felt the weight of the moment settle on him, not as fear but as an understanding. This was a turning point for him and for all of humanity. "Trust is not given lightly," Cain said, "and I will not betray it." The queen's eyes seemed to flicker with approval. She moved closer, and Cain could feel the hum of her energy, a living force that surrounded her like a shield. "I call you forward because my enemies cannot predict you. You move with thoughtfulness and courage, yet you are unshackled by the rigid patterns my people adhere to. That is why I choose you." He nodded. The words were both simple and extraordinary. No human had ever been recognized in this way by a species so far beyond them. Cain realized that in this moment, he represented not just himself, but every human who had ever been dismissed, underestimated, or ignored by the galaxy. The queen extended a delicate, translucent hand. Cain hesitated only briefly before reaching out. The connection was electric, not in a physical sense, but in the mental resonance that passed between them. He could sense her thoughts, her fears, her strategies, and a profound trust she was placing entirely on him. It was humbling and terrifying. "Stay close to me," she said. "Observe, protect, intervene when necessary. You will learn, and in turn I will rely on you." Cain's team, standing behind him, watched in awe and apprehension. To the queen, a human was now a companion and protector, a role no alien had ever assigned. Cain understood immediately that this was not ceremonial, it was dangerous. The court would test him, and enemies would see his proximity to the queen as a threat. Every step forward would be scrutinized. Yet in that moment, Cain felt a spark of something he had not felt before. A sense of purpose, clarity, and the knowledge that humanity, in its unpredictability and courage, had found a place among the stars that even the most powerful alien empire could not ignore. As he fell into step beside the queen, moving through the court, Cain noticed subtle signs of scrutiny from her advisors. Each glance, each flicker of thought was an attempt to read him, to predict how this human would act. And yet, for the first time, he realized that being unpredictable was a strength. It was humanity's greatest weapon, and it was finally recognized as such. The queen led him to a raised platform at the center of the chamber, where the laws of court and ceremony were most visible. Alien attendants floated around, preparing displays of psychic power and ceremonial weapons, all intended to demonstrate loyalty, strength, and obedience. Cain observed quietly, noting that where Zalarians relied on rigid patterns and instinctive calculations, humans thrived in improvisation and creativity. It was a lesson he would carry forward. For now, Cain knew that the coming days would test him in ways he could not imagine. Trust had been placed upon him, a human's hand in the web of alien power, and he would not fail. Humanity had waited long for such recognition, and Cain would ensure that it would not be wasted. The chamber buzzed with silent tension, the queen's multifaceted eyes never leaving him. Cain understood the truth of the moment. In this alien court, he was not just a visitor. He was a protector, an unpredictable force, and a symbol of humanity's rising place in a galaxy that had long ignored them. And in that knowledge, he felt a surge of determination stronger than any weapon he had ever held. As the ceremonial proceedings began, Cain fell into step beside the queen, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The court would test him, the galaxy would test him. But for the first time, humans were no longer the weak species observed from afar. They were a force to be reckoned with, capable of earning trust, shaping destinies, and standing shoulder to shoulder with beings far older and far stronger than themselves. And the queen had chosen him to prove it. The following days in the Zalarian Alien Empire court tested Commander Elias Cain in ways he had never imagined. The court was a living organism, every member moving with a precision and grace that seemed impossible. To outsiders, it appeared as though the courtiers floated, each gesture and glance laden with meaning, communicating through thought as much as speech. Cain, a human among them, was acutely aware of how out of place he was. Yet he also knew something that the Zalarians had yet to fully recognize. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and clever in ways no other species could anticipate. On the second morning, Cain was summoned to the queen's private chambers. Unlike the grand ceremonial hall, this space was intimate, despite its scale. Crystalline walls refracted soft light across the room, casting thousands of shimmering reflections. The queen stood at the center, her form radiant, her eyes fixed on him. "You are to remain close to me," she said, her thoughts resonating in his mind. "But this is not mere proximity. You must observe, understand, and act when necessary. The court is not as harmonious as it appears." Cain nodded. "Understood, Your Majesty." "But how will I know whom to trust?" The queen's multifaceted eyes seemed to flicker in amusement. "Trust is rare here. It must be earned. You will see through their masks, or the masks will see through you." It was a warning, but also an opportunity. Cain knew that survival in this court would not depend on strength alone. Observation, deduction, and understanding subtle cues would be vital. Every movement, every glance, even the tiniest hesitation could reveal allegiance or betrayal. That afternoon, Cain accompanied the queen to a ceremonial gathering of the court. Alien lords and ladies displayed intricate rituals of loyalty, bending their forms into complex shapes, emitting psychic energy that shimmered in the air. Cain watched carefully, noting the subtle differences in behavior. Some courtiers were flawless, their energy controlled and precise. Others faltered just slightly, betraying tension beneath the surface. Cain understood immediately. In a court where deception was the norm, the smallest deviation could signal danger. A sudden psychic ripple ran through the hall, subtle but unmistakable. Cain's instincts flared. He recognized the signal, not consciously, but as a human pattern of deviation. One of the court's advisors, a tall, angular Zalarian, had just passed a command through the network of thought without authorization. Cain's heart raced. This was not yet an attack, but it was a sign of disobedience, possibly even conspiracy. The queen sensed his awareness. "You notice much," she said. Her tone conveyed approval. "Good, you will need this skill. The court hides many threats beneath its elegance." The weeks that followed were a trial unlike any Cain had faced before. He moved through the court daily, standing beside the queen, guarding her subtly, and observing with careful attention. The courtiers tried to test him, issuing mental challenges, subtle traps, and convoluted ceremonial tasks. Cain relied on logic and creativity. When a psychic puzzle designed to confuse him appeared, he solved it not by following the expected pattern, but by thinking laterally, earning the queen's subtle nod of approval. One evening, Cain intercepted an unusually tense whisper, a council of 3 alien lords plotting in secret. He could not understand their words fully, but the tone, the mental patterns, the hesitation in their movements told him enough. Using a clever ruse, Cain created a diversion. He subtly triggered the chamber's reflective light system to scatter, causing the conspirators to pause. That brief moment gave the queen's loyal attendants enough time to observe the deviation and report it. Cain's quick thinking had prevented a potential act of sabotage, though no one, not even the conspirators, understood how he had seen it coming. The queen began to rely on him more openly. She allowed Cain to accompany her on private walks through the palace gardens, where floating streams of liquid energy flowed between crystalline trees. Here, away from the eyes of the court, she shared her thoughts more freely. Cain listened, absorbing every detail of her world, the history of the Zalarian Empire, the tensions among the lords, and the subtle dangers hidden in ceremonial laws. "You are unlike any human I have seen," she said once, her voice resonating gently in his mind. "Other species would bow, fear, or hide. You observe, question, and act. You are unpredictable yet precise. That is why I trust you." Cain felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility. He had survived countless battles, but this mental, social battlefield was far more complex. One wrong move, one failure to understand, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Yet he also felt exhilarated. Humanity had long been underestimated, but here, their greatest strengths, creativity, intuition, and courage, were finally recognized. The first true test came during a ceremonial feast. The court gathered to honor the queen, with tables floating in the air, shimmering with exotic foods and flowing energy. Cain noticed subtle shifts in the courtiers' movements, a hand lingering, a gaze flickering in a way that did not align with the ritual. He realized a small faction was planning an ambush during the proceedings. Without causing panic, Cain subtly repositioned himself near the queen, ready to intervene. As the alien lords moved, attempting to initiate their attack, Kane acted with precision. Using the reflective surfaces of the chamber and human improvisation, he created distractions and blocked paths, causing the conspirators to falter. The Queen's attendants, already on alert from previous observations, quickly subdued the would-be attackers. The court was none the wiser as to how the threat had been neutralized. Kane's calm, creative thinking had turned a potential disaster into a demonstration of human capability. Even the Queen's advisors, who had doubted his presence, now glanced at him with cautious respect. Days later, the Queen spoke privately to Kane. "Your actions during the feast, they were clever. You think in ways my people cannot anticipate. That is a rare gift." Kane nodded, keeping his tone modest. "I've learned to observe, to anticipate. That's how humans survive." The Queen's gaze softened. "And survive you shall if you remain near me. But beware, Commander. The court's dangers are endless. Every ally may conceal ambition. Every smile may hide a knife. You must continue to watch, to think, to act, as you did during the feast." Kane understood. The court was a battlefield of subtlety, where physical strength mattered less than intellect, observation, and the ability to act unpredictably. Humans had long been underestimated in the galaxy, their resilience dismissed. But here, the Queen recognized what Kane had always known. Adaptability, courage, and ingenuity were powerful weapons. The days turned into weeks, and Kane's presence became more than ceremonial. He began to learn the language of mental signals, understanding the subtle cues that revealed a courtier's true intent. He learned to anticipate missteps, to recognize patterns, and when necessary, to intervene with calculated precision. The Queen's trust grew, and Kane's crew began to see the human advantage. In unpredictability, there was power. One afternoon, Kane accompanied the Queen to a balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. Towers of crystal and metal rising into the sky, streams of energy weaving through the streets, and flying vessels moving in elegant patterns below. Kane realized that he had entered a world far beyond human imagination, yet here he stood, not as a guest, not as a prisoner, but as a trusted companion and protector. The Queen spoke quietly, her thoughts gentle but firm. "You are learning quickly, Commander. Soon you will face challenges that cannot be predicted by even the most skilled Zalarians. Remember, you do not fight alone. Humanity's strength is in its unity and creativity. That is why you are here." Kane felt a surge of determination. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. Here, he was not merely surviving. He was proving that humans, in their ingenuity and courage, could stand as equals among the galaxy's most advanced species. As the sun, or what humans perceived as the sun, set over the alien city, Kane felt a quiet pride. The Queen had recognized him, trusted him, and placed humanity in a position no one else had. But with that trust came responsibility. He would need every skill, every ounce of courage, and every instinct he had to navigate the court and protect the Queen from threats both seen and unseen. Kane straightened his shoulders and turned to her. "I will not fail," he said. The Queen's eyes seemed to shimmer in approval. "I know, that is why I called you forward." And with that, Kane understood fully, this was only the beginning. The court was a living web of danger and intrigue, and he, a human, had been entrusted to move through it. Humanity had long been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. Now, through him, it had a chance to show the galaxy that unpredictability, courage, and cleverness were strengths unmatched by even the oldest and most advanced civilizations. Tension had settled like a heavy fog over the Zalarian alien empire court. Commander Elias Kane had grown accustomed to the alien rhythms, the subtle mental currents that ran through every conversation, every gesture, every glance. Yet even with his increasing understanding, the court remained a place of constant danger. Every smile could hide ambition, every bow could conceal a blade, and every conversation carried unspoken threats. Kane knew the stakes, the Queen's life, and the stability of the empire depended on his vigilance. It began with whispers. Soft, almost imperceptible mental signals that drifted across the ceremonial hall during a council meeting. Kane noticed the tension immediately. 3 alien lords who had maintained perfect composure for weeks displayed micro-fluctuations in their psychic signatures, tiny bursts of anxiety, unusual pauses, patterns that betrayed planning. Kane's mind worked quickly, piecing together what these signals could mean. His instincts told him that a plot was forming. The queen, seated at the center of the council chamber, radiated calm. Her eyes scanned the assembly, yet Kane sensed that even she could not see everything. "Commander," she said quietly into his mind, "what do you perceive?" Kane focused, analyzing the mental patterns around him. "There's coordination among 3 lords," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "It's subtle, but their intentions are not aligned with your safety. I believe they are planning something, perhaps during the next ceremonial event." A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber, though none of the lords seemed to notice. The queen's gaze lingered on him, a faint glow of approval in her multifaceted eyes. "You must act carefully. Intervention is needed, but exposure could spark civil conflict." Over the next days, Kane moved like a shadow through the palace. He studied the courtiers' behaviors, noting inconsistencies, subtle gestures, and micro-changes in thought patterns. He spoke with loyal attendants, all humans and a few trusted Xylarians, carefully gathering information without alerting the conspirators. It was unlike any mission he had undertaken in human warfare. No guns, no explosives, just observation, deduction, and timing. The first direct test came during a ceremonial training session. The court gathered to demonstrate combat skill and mental precision. Kane observed quietly as the lords performed intricate sequences of physical and psychic maneuvers. To the untrained eye, it was elegant performance. Kane saw it differently: patterns, timing, and the potential for sudden divergence. One lord, tall and angular, paused in an unusual manner, sending a ripple through the energy field that surrounded the room. Kane recognized the pause not as a mistake, but as a signal. That evening, Kane reported his observations to the queen in a private chamber. "3 lords are coordinating," he said. "They will attempt something during the grand gala. They intend to discredit you, perhaps even harm you." The queen considered this. Her eyes flickered, reflecting the subtle energies of the chamber. "Your perception is sharp. Few would have noticed these deviations. We must prepare without revealing our awareness." Kane nodded. They devised a plan. Using the palace's architecture, reflective surfaces, and controlled mental cues, Kane and the queen subtly monitored the conspirators. He positioned loyal attendants strategically, ensuring that every path the plotters could take was under surveillance. Kane's human ingenuity came into play. He anticipated moves the Xylarians would not, relying on unpredictability and improvisation. The gala arrived. The grand hall shimmered with floating tables, iridescent decorations, and streams of flowing energy. Hundreds of courtiers gathered, the atmosphere thick with formality and subtle tension. Kane stayed close to the queen, alert to every flicker of movement, every deviation from expected behavior. It happened as he predicted. One of the lords attempted to manipulate the ceremonial energy fields to create chaos, a distraction intended to isolate the queen. Kane acted instantly. He redirected the energy flow using reflective surfaces, creating a visual distraction that masked the queen's movement. At the same time, he signaled loyal attendants to intercept the conspirators, cutting off their escape routes without alarming the rest of the court. The confrontation was quick and precise. The conspirators were subdued before their plan could fully unfold. The court, impressed but unaware of the exact threat, assumed it had been a minor ceremonial mishap. Kane's intervention remained unseen, his brilliance hidden beneath calm composure. After the gala, the queen met Kane in a secluded garden. Streams of liquid energy flowed between crystalline trees, casting rainbow reflections across their forms. "You acted decisively," she said, her thoughts resonating in his mind. "You saw the pattern, predicted the moves, and protected me without alerting anyone." "That is extraordinary," Kane bowed slightly. "It's what humans do," he said. "We survive by thinking differently, we adapt, that's our strength." The queen's eyes glimmered with approval. "And that is why I trust you. Your species is underestimated across the galaxy. Yet in your unpredictability lies power. You have proven that humans are not to be ignored." But even as the queen spoke, Kane sensed that this victory was only temporary. The conspirators had been cautious, but others in the court observed with envy and suspicion. Kane knew the danger had not ended, it had merely shifted. The court was a living web of alliances, rivalries, and ambition. Over the next weeks, Kane's role expanded. He was no longer merely a guardian. He became an advisor of sorts, offering perspectives the Xylarians could not predict. During council meetings, He suggested strategies that relied on creativity and lateral thinking, approaches the alien lords initially resisted. Yet each time, Kane's methods proved effective, earning cautious respect. One afternoon, Kane accompanied the Queen to a high platform overlooking the city. The floating towers shimmered in sunlight, and vessels moved with precise elegance across the sky. "You are learning quickly," the Queen said. "You observe not only threats but opportunities. That is rare. Few can see both." Kane nodded. "Humans survive because we adapt. We notice what others overlook. That's how we stay alive." The Queen's eyes softened, reflecting pride and trust. "And now, Commander, you have a role greater than survival. You shape outcomes, protect me, and prove that humans are formidable in ways my people cannot comprehend." That evening, Kane reflected on the progress he had made. Humans were underestimated in the galaxy, often dismissed as fragile and ill-prepared. Yet here, in the heart of the Zalarian Empire, he realized that human ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability were perhaps the most potent tools of all. Where the Zalarians relied on calculation and tradition, humans relied on creativity and adaptability. The next test arrived unexpectedly. One of the Queen's attendants, normally loyal, approached Kane with subtle hesitation. Kane recognized the slight mental disturbance, a signal of doubt or fear. Through careful questioning and observation, Kane discovered that the conspirators had not been entirely eliminated. Whispers of rebellion still lingered. Kane acted swiftly. He devised a plan to test loyalty without causing alarm. Using a combination of human logic and subtle manipulation of ceremonial routines, he identified which attendants could be trusted implicitly and which required closer observation. His methods were unorthodox, sometimes baffling to the Zalarians, but they worked. Every potential threat was mapped, monitored, and neutralized before it could grow into real danger. Through all this, Kane's bond with the Queen deepened. She shared insights into Zalarian culture, history, and politics. Kane listened, learning not only about threats but also about the subtleties of leadership in a civilization older and more complex than humanity could imagine. In return, Kane offered perspectives grounded in human experience, empathy, improvisation, and a willingness to take calculated risks. "You have taught me something, Commander," the Queen said one evening as they stood in the quiet of her chambers. "Humans are not only strong in body and mind, but in spirit. You challenge assumptions, reveal hidden truths, and remind me that trust can be given wisely, even to outsiders." Kane felt a quiet pride, tempered by the weight of responsibility. He knew that more challenges awaited. The court was a living puzzle, and every solved problem revealed deeper complexity. Yet for the first time, he felt that humans had earned recognition, not just as survivors, but as valuable participants in the galaxy's vast web of civilizations. As he prepared for the night's duties, Kane reflected on the path that had brought him here. The Zalarian Empire was powerful and ancient, yet it was vulnerable to the creativity and courage of a single human mind. His species had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as weak. But now, through observation, ingenuity, and courage, humanity had begun to claim its place among the stars. And Commander Elias Kane, a human among aliens, had become proof that even the smallest spark could illuminate the darkest corners of an empire. The tension that had simmered beneath the surface of the Zalarian alien empire court finally erupted. Commander Elias Kane could feel it in the patterns of thought, the subtle ripples of energy that pulsed through the chamber. The conspirators, previously cautious, had grown bolder. The Queen's safety and the stability of the entire empire hung in the balance. Kane understood immediately that the coming hours would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage he possessed. It began during a routine ceremonial assembly. The court gathered to celebrate a minor victory in the Empire's ongoing expansion, yet Kane sensed the undercurrent of danger immediately. 3 of the lords who had been plotting against the Queen exchanged subtle mental signals, invisible to everyone but Kane. Their coordination was precise, deliberate, and deadly. They intended not just to humiliate the Queen, but to strike directly at her life. Kane moved silently, positioning himself closer to the Queen. Every instinct he had honed over weeks of observation came into play. He noted the courtier's movements, the flow of psychic energy, and the alignment of the chamber itself. The palace architecture, designed to amplify and focus energy, could be turned to his advantage. or his detriment. Kane's human mind raced, calculating angles, timings, and possibilities faster than any simulation could have prepared him for. As the ceremony progressed, the conspirators made their move. A sudden surge of psychic energy erupted near the Queen, designed to disorient her attendants and create chaos. Kane acted instantly. He intercepted the energy using the reflective surfaces of the chamber, a trick he had improvised from observing how light refracted through crystalline structures. The energy scattered harmlessly, unnoticed by the rest of the court. The conspirators were relentless. They advanced, attempting to separate the Queen from her loyalists. Kane anticipated each maneuver, stepping between the Queen and potential attackers with calm precision. He used the environment to his advantage, mirrored pillars, floating platforms, and streams of flowing energy, to create obstacles and force the conspirators into predictable paths. Kane's unpredictability, combined with his understanding of human tactics, turned the battle into a controlled chaos in which the Queen remained safe. Even the Queen, powerful as she was, relied on Kane's quick thinking. Her eyes, multifaceted and radiant, scanned him as she moved, trusting his guidance without question. Kane had learned to read her cues, to move in harmony with her energy, and to anticipate threats that even she could not fully see. Together they became a seamless team, human ingenuity paired with alien power. The first conspirator lunged, attempting to strike with a blade of pure energy. Kane sidestepped, using the attacker's momentum against him, and guided him into a containment field preset by loyal attendants. Another conspirator attempted a psychic assault, sending waves of disorientation toward the Queen. Kane interposed himself, channeling the energy toward a reflective surface that neutralized its effect. The court watched in awe, though most believed it to be ceremonial posturing rather than life-or-death maneuvering. Amid the chaos, Kane's human instincts shone. He noticed that the patterns of attack were designed not only to harm physically, but to create confusion, to make the Queen hesitate, to exploit any doubt. Kane's calm, clear-headed thinking countered this perfectly. He issued silent signals to the loyalists, coordinated movements, and intervened in ways the conspirators could not predict. Human unpredictability had become a weapon, one that the alien attackers could not anticipate or counter. The battle moved through the chamber like a storm. Energy streams arced across the floor, crystalline pillars refracted light into dazzling patterns, and the air vibrated with psychic resonance. Kane maneuvered with precision, protecting the Queen while neutralizing each threat. One by one, the conspirators were subdued, their attempts at deception and attack unraveling under the weight of careful observation, quick thinking, and fearless action. Finally, the leader of the conspirators, a tall and angular Zalarian, realized his plan had failed. In a last desperate move, he attempted to use the chamber itself as a weapon, trying to collapse a floating platform onto the Queen. Kane anticipated this immediately. He created a counterweight using a combination of human ingenuity and the chamber's energy flows, diverting the platform safely. The conspirator was trapped under his own device, neutralized without harm to others. The room fell silent. The court, unaware of the precise danger that had passed, interpreted the events as part of the ceremonial demonstration. Kane stood close to the Queen, breathing steadily, his eyes alert. She turned to him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and approval. "You acted with brilliance, Commander," she said, her thoughts resonating directly in his mind. "You saw the unseen, moved faster than intention, and protected me flawlessly. Few could have done what you did." Kane nodded, feeling a surge of pride tempered by the weight of responsibility. "It's what humans do. We survive, we adapt, we think in ways others cannot predict." The Queen's gaze softened, a rare display of emotion in a species so disciplined. "And that is why I trust you. You are not just a protector, you are an ally in every sense. Your presence changes the balance of this court and the perception of your species across the galaxy." In the days that followed, Kane's role became even more integral. The court had witnessed the subtle display of skill and control, and whispers began to circulate. Humans, previously underestimated, were now recognized as valuable and capable. Kane's actions had not only saved the Queen, but had also shifted the court's perception of humanity. Yet the danger was far from over. The conspirators had been eliminated, but their allies still lingered, observing, plotting, waiting for another opportunity. Kane knew that vigilance could not falter. Every ceremony, every meeting, and every interaction remained a potential battlefield. One evening, Kane accompanied the Queen to a balcony overlooking the alien city. Streams of flowing energy illuminated the towers, and vessels moved gracefully through the sky. The city seemed serene, almost peaceful, but Kane knew better. Danger lurked in the shadows, and the Queen's enemies were patient, cunning, and relentless. "You have done more than I expected," the Queen said quietly, her voice resonating in his mind. "You have proven that humans can not only survive but excel in a world designed to test every weakness. You are extraordinary." Kane looked at the city below, understanding the magnitude of what had occurred. The court had attempted to destroy the Queen's authority, to undermine her power, and to eliminate her. Yet a human had seen the threats, anticipated the moves, and acted decisively to protect her. Humanity, long dismissed as weak, had proven its value in a way no alien could ignore. "I only did what was necessary," Kane said. "But I understand now. Humans are stronger than many believe. We adapt, we improvise, and we act when others hesitate. That is why we survive and why we can stand here today." The Queen nodded, her eyes reflecting pride and trust. "And because of you, Commander, I see the potential in humanity. Your species will not be overlooked again. You have earned my confidence, my trust, and the knowledge that you can shape outcomes beyond expectation." Kane felt a deep sense of purpose. The battle had been won, but the war for influence, trust, and stability in the court continued. Yet he also knew that he had demonstrated something far greater than skill or courage. He had shown that humans, often underestimated, possessed a combination of intelligence, creativity, and bravery that could rival even the most advanced species in the galaxy. As the night descended over the alien city, Kane and the Queen stood together, watching the glowing towers and flowing energy streams. The court had been tested, the conspirators defeated, and the Queen's safety secured. But more importantly, humanity had been recognized, not as weak observers, but as capable, resourceful, and indispensable participants in the galaxy. Kane's mind reflected on the events. Humans had often been underestimated, dismissed as fragile and limited. Yet in the unpredictability of thought, the courage to act, and the ability to adapt, they had shown a strength the Xylarians had never anticipated. Kane realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer marginal. It was central, respected, and increasingly powerful in ways that others could not yet comprehend. The Queen turned to him, her expression serene yet commanding. "The court has seen your strength, but more challenges lie ahead. You must remain vigilant, for others will test both me and you. Your actions have shifted the balance, but the game is far from over." Kane nodded, ready for whatever came next. He understood fully that his role was not just protection, but leadership, strategy, and the embodiment of humanity's potential. The court had underestimated humans for too long, and through him they were learning the truth, that courage, intelligence, and unpredictability were powers all their own. And as he looked out over the alien city, Kane felt a quiet certainty. The Queen was safe. Humanity had been recognized, and the galaxy was beginning to see that humans were no longer to be overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. They were capable of shaping destinies, challenging assumptions, and standing as equals among the most powerful civilizations in existence. The night was calm, but Kane knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Yet he was ready. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had proven itself. And as long as he stood by the Queen, there was no threat too great, no court too cunning, and no enemy too formidable that could overcome the power of human ingenuity, courage, and determination. The court of the Xylarian alien empire had never been quieter. The threats that had once pulsed through the chamber like hidden storms had been removed, and the conspirators who sought to overthrow the Queen lay defeated, subdued by the precision and ingenuity of Commander Elias Kane. Yet despite the calm, Kane knew that the court's undercurrents were never truly still. Ambition and envy lingered like shadows, subtle and patient. The Queen moved through the chamber, her presence radiant and commanding. Her eyes, multifaceted and shimmering, scanned her court with serene authority. Courtiers who had once whispered behind closed doors now paused in silent respect. The events of the past weeks had shifted the balance. Humans, long dismissed as weak observers, had proven themselves not only capable but indispensable. Kane had changed perceptions, not through force alone, but through intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Kane followed closely, aware that his role extended beyond mere protection. He had become a part of the court's fabric, a living proof of humanity's potential. Every step he took, every decision he made, reinforced the idea that humans were not to be underestimated. The Queen called a formal assembly, unprecedented in the history of the Empire. Courtiers gathered, floating elegantly in the air, their energy shimmering with curiosity, suspicion, and awe. At the center, the Queen stood, Kane beside her. The assembly was not just ceremonial, it was a declaration. The humans would no longer be ignored. "You have witnessed events that challenged the strength and stability of this court," the Queen said, her voice resonating directly in the minds of all present. "You have seen danger, deception, and ambition in forms subtle and overt. Yet through it all, one being, a human, has acted with courage, precision, and intelligence beyond expectation. Commander Elias Kane." Gasps and murmurs ran through the court. Humans were rarely spoken of in such terms, much less honored publicly. Kane felt a mix of pride and humility. He stepped forward, standing at the Queen's side, and acknowledged the assembly with measured respect. "The humans have often been underestimated," the Queen continued. "Yet in their unpredictability, their ingenuity, and their courage, they possess strengths that even the oldest species may not anticipate. Today, we recognize not only Commander Kane, but the potential of his entire species. Humans are no longer observers. They are participants, allies, and equals." The courtiers looked at Kane with a mixture of awe and contemplation. Some were hesitant, unaccustomed to such direct acknowledgement. Others nodded subtly, recognizing the truth they had long denied. Humanity had arrived, not as a weak species to be dismissed, but as a force whose value could not be ignored. After the assembly, Kane accompanied the Queen to a balcony overlooking the city. The towers glimmered in the fading light, streams of energy flowing like rivers through the sky. Flying vessels moved in elegant patterns, casting long shadows across the crystalline streets. Kane's mind reflected on all that had occurred. The Queen's trust had been placed upon him, the court had been tested, and humanity had proven itself in ways that could not be erased. "You have done more than protect me," the Queen said, her thoughts gentle yet commanding. "You have reshaped perceptions. You have shown that strength is not only in power or tradition, but in courage, intellect, and adaptability. Your species has earned its place here." Kane nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "I only acted as any human would," he said. "We survive by thinking differently, by seeing what others overlook, and by acting when it matters most. That is how we endure, and how we can stand among the stars." The Queen regarded him, her multifaceted eyes reflecting pride and approval. "And that is why I trust you, Elias Kane. Your presence has altered the course of this court and the legacy of your species. Humans will be remembered, respected, and feared not for aggression alone, but for the strength of mind and spirit that you embody." In the following days, Kane worked closely with the Queen to stabilize the court further. He advised on subtle matters of loyalty, strategy, and observation. Human methods, often considered unpredictable, brought clarity where the court's tradition relied on rigid calculation. Kane's influence grew not through arrogance but through results, through the demonstration of skill, intuition, and unwavering focus. The Queen began including him in strategic discussions, allowing Kane to share insights into threats beyond the court, neighboring civilizations, trade disputes, and political alliances. Kane observed patterns, anticipated moves, and suggested solutions that combined human creativity with Xylarian understanding. The court adapted, slowly recognizing the value of an outside perspective that could not be predicted or constrained by centuries of rigid tradition. One evening, Kane was summoned to the Queen's private chambers. The room glowed softly with refracted light, casting delicate patterns across the crystalline walls. The Queen regarded him with a calm intensity. "You have done well, Commander," she said. "Your presence has not only protected me, but has reshaped perceptions of humanity throughout this empire. I wish to formalize your role and ensure that your species is recognized for its contributions." Kane felt the weight of the moment. This was more than a personal honor, it was an acknowledgement of humanity itself. "I am honored, Your Majesty," he said, "but I speak for all humans. Our strength lies in unity, adaptability, and courage. That is what should be recognized." The queen smiled, a gesture rare among her kind. Then it shall be so. Humanity will no longer be dismissed. They will be allies, partners, and forces whose ingenuity and spirit are respected. You, Elias Kane, have shown the way. In the weeks that followed, the court's dynamics shifted. Courtiers who had doubted humans now observed with caution and respect. Plans were reconsidered, alliances reshaped, and humanity's influence began to spread quietly but firmly. Kane continued to act as the queen's advisor and protector, blending human insight with Zalarian tradition in a partnership that became legendary within the Empire. Beyond the court, humanity's place in the galaxy was also evolving. Word of Kane's actions and the recognition granted by the Queen spread through diplomatic channels. Other species, long accustomed to dismissing humans, began to reconsider. Humans were no longer simply survivors. They were strategists, thinkers, and capable participants in the galaxy's complex web of politics and power. One afternoon, Kane and the Queen stood on a high balcony overlooking the city. The sun, or what humans perceived as a sun, cast long, shifting shadows across towers of crystal and flowing energy. Flying vessels traced patterns in the sky, their movements precise and deliberate. Kane felt a deep sense of accomplishment, tempered by humility. The path had been dangerous, the stakes enormous, but humanity had emerged recognized and respected. "You have changed the course of history," the Queen said, her voice soft but resonant. "Not through conquest, but through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when others hesitate. Humanity has proven itself, and through you, Elias Kane, they will continue to do so." Kane's thoughts reflected on the journey. From the moment he had arrived at the Zalarian court, humans had been underestimated. They had been observed, dismissed, and disregarded. Yet in every challenge, every threat, every intricate maneuver, humanity had shown a unique strength. Not brute force, not centuries of tradition, but creativity, courage, and the ability to act where others could not. "I understand," Kane said quietly. "Humans will continue to adapt, to learn, and to act. That is how we survive and thrive. That is how we prove our place among the stars." The Queen regarded him, a rare expression of admiration and approval shining through her multifaceted eyes. "And through you, Commander, humans will be remembered, not as weak observers, but as capable, resourceful, and courageous. The galaxy will know their value." As the night deepened, Kane reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had entered a court filled with deception and danger, where trust was scarce and every action could have deadly consequences. Yet through observation, ingenuity, and courage, he had not only protected the Queen but reshaped perceptions, proving that humans were more than underestimated observers. They were vital participants in the galaxy's ongoing story. The city below glimmered like a web of light, alive with energy and movement. Kane stood with the Queen side by side, knowing that this was not an ending but a beginning. Humanity's journey in the galaxy was far from complete, but for the first time, they had earned recognition and respect on a scale never before imagined. And in that quiet, reflective moment, Kane understood something profound. It was not weapons, technology, or raw power that defined strength. It was courage, intelligence, adaptability, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Humanity had shown these qualities, and through him, the galaxy would remember them. The Queen placed a delicate hand on Kane's arm, a gesture of trust and acknowledgement. "The court is stable, the conspirators neutralized, and humanity recognized. But remember, Commander, vigilance is eternal. You have proven yourselves, yet the galaxy will always test those who rise." Kane nodded, his resolve unwavering. "We will continue to meet those challenges. Humans adapt, humans endure, and humans rise." The Queen's eyes shimmered, reflecting pride and a rare warmth. "Then rise, Elias Kane. Rise, humanity. Your place among the stars is secure, and your potential is limitless." As the night deepened and the city's lights shimmered below, Kane felt a sense of quiet triumph. Humanity had been tested, challenged, and underestimated. Yet through courage, ingenuity, and determination, they had proven their value. The Queen had trusted a human, the court had witnessed human skill, and the galaxy had begun to recognize that humanity was no longer to be dismissed. And with that realization, Kane knew that the future held limitless possibilities. Humans had earned their place, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again.